When flying saucers first got here, there was a kind of surge of interest. Everyone got fascinated by them. And for a long time, flying saucers were all the rage.
Flying saucers have invaded our planet. Washington, London, Paris, Moscow are key targets.
When it was first suggested we might be visited by aliens, I think astronomers just chuckled.
The whole world is under attack.
But then it gradually took hold. It had to be taken, well, more notice had to be taken of it, I suppose.
Can it survive?
Don't forget, in the 40s and 50s, we didn't know as much as we'd like to about the Mars and Venus particularly. And Venus we thought might be a world with oceans and possibly primitive life, or even advanced life. And I think science fiction has had a great influence. People read it and took it seriously. And there was widespread panic in America.
The United States Air Force set up a research project into this called Project Blue Book.
Blue Book was the American military's attempt in the Cold War climate to explain flying saucers. However, not everyone was willing to accept Blue Book's earthly explanations. Among them, Major General Donald Kehoe.
With all due respect to the Air Force, I believe that some of them will prove to be of interplanetary origin. During a 3-year investigation, I found that many pilots have described objects of substance and high speed. One case, pilots reported their plane was buffeted by an object which passed them at 500 miles an hour. Obviously, this was a solid object, and I believe it was from outer space.
As far as the British were concerned, I think they started more serious ongoing investigations in the late 1940s because they were getting reports from pilots. And then in 1950, following the release of America's first 2 official reports into their secret investigations, which were some parts of which were declassified, the British government liaised with their United States counterparts in scientific and technical intelligence, and they determined that this was serious enough to set up a top secret, it was called the Flying Saucer Working Party.
The British consulted the Americans in formulating the Flying Saucer Working Party. Their findings closely mirrored Project Blue Book's conclusions.
It's quite clear that, on the surface at least, they were highly skeptical. The Americans had clearly persuaded them that there was nothing to worry about. 90% of all reports could be explained, and the remaining percentage could probably be explained if more information was available.
The Flying Saucer Working Party, of course, effectively concluded that no UFO sightings really had any exotic explanation, and they could all probably be explained in terms of misidentifications. So the recommendation was that no further action be taken on that, and the Working Party was formally wound up, and really that's where certain people involved with the study clearly wanted and expected it to end. When you look at the old files and when you see just the calibre of the sorts of people that were getting involved in the debate, you can see that this is not silly season stuff. This went right to the heart of government.
The Prime Minister at the time, Winston Churchill, expressed a personal interest in the subject.
There had been records released in the Public Record Office about Churchill's interest, and this was triggered by the July 1952 wave of sightings, particularly over Washington.
We bring you this special radio-television broadcast in order to give you the very latest information on an amazing phenomenon, the arrival of a space ship in Washington.
Do you believe in flying saucers? Have you any convincing reasons why science fiction shouldn't one day become reality?
This triggered worldwide headlines, and Churchill demanded to know what's going on. You know, what does all this stuff about flying saucers mean? What does it all amount to? I want to know. And he asked his air staff to give him an explanation.
And that explanation is revealed in the files.
Prime Minister, don't worry. It's all been explained. We've been in touch with our American counterparts, and nearly all sightings can be explained away. The radar cases can be explained by pigeons with metal rings around their legs, and so on and so forth. So, Prime Minister, forget it. It's not a serious problem.
Very shortly after the Flying Saucer Working Party had concluded that UFOs were of no defence significance and the whole matter should be quietly dropped, events took a slightly different turn.
Just a minute, ladies and gentlemen. I think something is happening.
Around this time, there were a series of dramatic close encounters between Air Force pilots and UFOs. What made these reports fascinating was that they were often corroborated by radar evidence. The combination of the two meant that the Ministry of Defense were faced with a threat that had to be taken seriously.
I came here to give you these facts, but if you threaten to extend your violence, this earth of yours will be reduced to a burned-out cinder.
The public were not yet really aware that the Ministry of Defence was in this game at all, so we probably didn't have that many reports coming in from the public, whereas down Air Force chains, standard operating procedures were beginning to be put out, actively encouraging aircrew who saw something to report it.
At air bases around the country, reports of UFOs came flooding in. The witnesses were often some of the RAF's most accomplished pilots.
The 21st of October 1952, a date indelibly printed in my mind.
Michael Swinney was based at RAF Little Rissington, training the top forces pilots to become instructors. He was expecting to make a routine flight with one of his students.
It was round about 12, 13, 14,000 feet. We broke through some cloud with nothing above. Fairly soon after that, I was rather horrified to see framed in the front windscreen of the Meteor 3 circular white objects.
Mick Swinney in the front suddenly said, "Is your oxygen connected?"